The hat touches your head, and you feel it thinking, not sorting, not deciding, weighing. It finds the cupboard under the stairs. The hunger. The thing you've been carrying since before you had a word for it. The hat finds a word. Slytherin. You know one thing about Slytherin. Draco Malfoy said it on the train. Like, obviously. Hagrid said it apologetically. The way people say, be careful. And so you say the only word left. Not Slytherin. Not Slytherin. Not Slytherin. The hat listens. Dumbledore watches from the staff table. He says nothing. This is not a theory. The Sorting Hat considered Slytherin for Harry Potter. Not a passing thought, a genuine deliberation. Long enough for Harry to hear the word, long enough to speak back against it. J.K. Rowling confirmed it. The hat saw something specific. A determination so fierce it had no name yet. An ambition that had survived 11 years of being told it had no right to exist. He was sorted by his own request. That has never been given the weight it deserves. Because think about what that means. The boy who spent 11 years being told he was nothing, nobody, a burden, a mistake, walked into Hogwarts and chose his identity before he'd had a single lesson. He was handed one label and told it was dark, and he said no. That is not bravery. That is something more complicated. That is someone who already understands what the wrong label can do to a person. So this isn't a story about a dark Harry Potter. It isn't about what would have gone wrong. It's about what might have gone right. The common room is beneath the lake. The ceiling moves like shallow water, pale and green and cold. It should feel wrong. It doesn't. Harry Potter has slept in smaller spaces than this for 10 years. The first difference is Draco. In the world we know, Draco Malfoy is the first real enemy Harry makes. They meet in Madame Malkin's before they've even arrived at school, and by the time they share a house, something between them has already hardened into contempt. But in this version, they sit at the same table on the first night. Draco passes the salt. Harry takes it. That's all, but it's everything. Because Slytherin does not run on blood status the way outsiders believe. It runs on usefulness, on what you can offer. And Harry Potter, even at 11, offers something Draco Malfoy wants more than he will ever admit. He is the most famous wizard in the world, and Draco has been told since birth that this matters. They are not friends, but they are not enemies. And the absence of that specific enemy changes everything. Hermione Granger still raises her hand in every class. Ron Weasley still laughs too easily and loves too hard and gives himself to people the way Slytherin teaches you not to. Harry watches all of this from a different angle. He sees Hermione the way Slytherin sees Hermione, as someone whose usefulness is obvious if you're paying attention. He pays attention. Halloween, the troll. Hermione is crying in a bathroom because someone said something cruel in a corridor. Harry runs back. Not because he forgot to warn her, because he heard what was said. He watched it happen and did nothing. And Slytherin teaches you very quickly that there are only two kinds of people, those who are useful to you and those you've failed. He does not intend to fail her twice. The troll is defeated. Hermione becomes their friend. She joins a different story. Second year, the Chamber of Secrets. Harry speaks to a snake in front of half the school, and in the world we know, the rumors turn the whole castle against him. In Slytherin, there are no rumors. They already know. Parseltongue in the dungeons is not a horror story. It is ancient. It is the mark of the founder himself. The other students don't look at Harry with fear. They look at him with recognition. This changes who helps him. Slytherin teaches you something Gryffindor never quite manages. You do not solve problems alone if you do not have to. You build networks. You share information only when necessary, but you share it. The chamber is still opened. Ginny Weasley is still in danger. But Harry does not go in alone. The basilisk still falls. The diary still burns. But instead of a speech about love and Dumbledore, Harry stands over the wreckage and looks at the memory of a boy who used a girl to get what he wanted, and makes a quiet, deliberate decision to be a different kind of ambitious. Third year, Sirius Black. In Gryffindor, Harry's first instinct is rage. His parents' murderer has escaped. He wants justice. He wants revenge. He wants somewhere to put everything he's been carrying. In Slytherin, the first instinct is different. Who is this man? And what does he actually want? Harry doesn't rush towards Sirius. He waits, he watches. He reaches the same question 300 pages earlier than Gryffindor Harry. Is this man innocent? He reaches the same answer. In the shrieking shack, Pettigrew still escapes. Some things cannot be undone. But Harry looks at Sirius Black in the aftermath and finds something he hasn't had since before he can remember. Family. He doesn't say it. He doesn't know how. But he doesn't let go of it. Fourth year. Harry's name comes out of the Goblet of Fire. In Gryffindor, Ron doesn't believe him. The unfairness of it almost breaks their friendship. In Slytherin, no one is surprised. They assume ambition. Of course they do. The boy who survived, who speaks Parseltongue, who has been quietly building something useful in the dungeons for 3 years, of course he found a way in. Harry doesn't bother to explain. He competes. But this is the truth the story keeps returning to. The thing that does not change, regardless of which common room he slept in. The graveyard does not change. Cedric Diggory still dies. You can give Harry Potter every advantage, every alliance, every warning. You can seat him at the right table, hand him the right friendships, let him grow into himself instead of into a role. Cedric Diggory still dies. Because that death is not about Harry. It is about Voldemort, and what Voldemort is willing to do to prove a point. Harry still carries him home. But here is what changes. Voldemort looks at this boy, the Slytherin boy, the cunning boy, the boy who refused to be nothing and refused to be everything, and he does not give the speech he gives Gryffindor Harry. He does not offer survival. He offers partnership. You could have been one of mine. You should have been. And Harry Potter, who grew up in the dark and learned to survive it, who spent 4 years being underestimated and turned that into a skill, says no. Not because he is brave, because he has spent 4 years learning the difference between power that is chosen and power that is taken. He refuses to let Voldemort choose for him. If this version of Harry is staying with you, if the question of who he might have become is one you're still turning over, this is the kind of reading I make for people like you. The subscribe is there if you want to keep exploring. 5th year. Umbridge arrives. Dumbledore's army in Gryffindor is pure instinct. Harry teaches because no one else will. It is brave. It is exactly what you expect from Gryffindor. In Slytherin, Harry builds Dumbledore's army as a strategy. The Ministry will not protect them. Dumbledore's silence has become a pattern. And Slytherin has taught Harry, slowly and without sentiment, what silence from someone powerful means. It is not safety, it is preparation. So he acts first. The membership is smaller, more carefully chosen. Not everyone who wants to join gets in. But the core is the same. Hermione and Ron, Neville and Ginny. The people who showed up when it was inconvenient. The people who didn't need him to be famous in order to believe him. The room of requirement still fills with light when they practice. 6th year. Draco Malfoy is given a task. In Gryffindor, Harry watches from a distance. He suspects. He sees Draco crying in a bathroom and almost casts a curse he doesn't understand. In Slytherin, Harry has watched Draco Malfoy for 6 years. He has watched someone perform cruelty to avoid feeling it. Someone born into every advantage and still making choices from fear. Someone who was never offered an option other than being his father's son. Harry has some feelings about boys who are told who they have to become. He doesn't tell Draco everything, but he tells him enough. The astronomy tower still happens. Dumbledore still falls. Some things cannot be changed. But Draco Malfoy lowers his wand a second before Snape arrives. Not because Harry asked him to, because for 6 years he watched Harry Potter refuse to be what everyone told him he was. And for one moment, he made the same choice. 7th year. Harry reads the memory in the final hours and learns the truth. That he is a Horcrux. That he must die. That Dumbledore has known since the beginning. That the plan, the whole plan, from the very beginning, was for Harry to walk into the forest and allow Voldemort to kill him. Gryffindor Harry receives this and goes. With grief. With a long, slow walk through the castle he loves. A goodbye that nobody knows is a goodbye. He goes because the plan requires it. Because Dumbledore, even revealed, even gone, still has his trust. Slytherin Harry reads the same memory. And stops. Because Slytherin has spent 7 years teaching him one question before he does anything, and he cannot stop asking it now. Who benefits? Everyone. Everyone except him. He walks into the forest anyway. Not because he trusts Dumbledore. He stopped trusting Dumbledore somewhere in 5th year, when the silence became a pattern and the pattern became a shape. Not because a plan required it. He walks into the forest because he looked at every other option and chose this one. Fully. With both eyes open. And that is the difference. Gryffindor Harry walks into the forest to fulfill his destiny. Slytherin Harry walks into the forest to take it. Here is the question we never asked. Not, would Slytherin Harry have turned dark? The answer to that is obvious. He would not have. The thing that made Harry Harry, the capacity to love, the loyalty, the refusal to let the people he loved suffer alone, that does not come from the common room he slept in. It comes from 11 years of knowing what it felt like to be left out in the cold and choosing not to do the same to anyone else. No common room changes that. The question is more uncomfortable. What did Gryffindor take from him? Harry Potter walked into a house that handed him a story. Brave, noble, chosen. He stepped into a narrative that Dumbledore had been writing since before Harry could walk. He never had to ask who he was, because the answer was always ready-made. Slytherin Harry would not have had that. Slytherin gives you no noble story to rest inside. It hands you ambition and a dungeon and says, figure it out. Harry would have had to become himself the hard way. That is not a worse outcome. That is an honest one. The hat touched Harry's head and found something without a name. Not darkness, not greatness. Something that existed before either of those stories was written onto him. A will. A determination so old and so deep it had survived 10 years of being told it wasn't there. The hat called it Slytherin. And Harry Potter, 11 years old, knowing the word only from a boy who sneered it and a giant who said it apologetically, said no. We cheered. Because that is the story we wanted. The orphan who defies the shadow. The brave house. The destiny fulfilled. We cheered for a child refusing the only version of himself that nobody else had written yet. The Sorting Hat knew what was in Harry Potter. Harry Potter told it not to say so. And Dumbledore sat at the staff table and watched and said nothing.